Believe it or not, today is my final podcast. It's been a phenomenal 10 years of podcasting, and I can't believe it's my last episode. I'm both excited that I've accomplished so much and had so many great guests and listeners and sponsors, and the KBK Wealth Connection team has done such a great job. But I also have some mixed feelings as well, a little sadness.
Welcome to Unleash Your True Value, a Breaking Money Silence podcast where professional women flip the script on self-doubt, ditch the discount mindset, and start owning their worth like the rock stars they are. Each episode is packed with real talk, practical tips, and the occasional mic drop to help you charge what you're worth and earn what you truly deserve. So buckle up, grab your coffee, because it's time to unleash your true value and make some noise while you're at it. Now, here's your host, Kathleen Burns Kingsbury.
Joining me, though, for the celebration in this very special episode is my colleague and one of my former guests, Ellen Rogin. And if you don't know Ellen, you should. She's a money expert, financial intuitive, and best-selling author. She holds a CPA and a CFP and has worked as a traditional advisor for many years before transitioning to coaching and speaking. Ellen has two great books. I met her when the first one came out, called Your Picture of Prosperity, and more recently, she has Messages from Money. She has been a guest on the podcast numerous times over the years, and I have also had the honor of being on a podcast she hosts called The Horse's Mouth as well. When I thought of who should be with me on this last episode, I thought, Ellen, she's so knowledgeable, she's very generous in spirit, and would be a fun person to celebrate with me, as she has been kind of along the journey with me over the past 10 years. So welcome, Ellen, to the final podcast, and thank you so much for celebrating with me.
I am truly honored to be here with you on this final podcast, Kathleen. Thank you.
I know. I never thought I would get to, first of all, 10 years. And when I started podcasting, Ellen, it really was about doing some research for my book called Breaking Money Silence. So the fact that it lasted 10 years and we're here today, your first appearance was on 2016. Do you remember that?
I do. And it feels in some ways like ancient history. And yet, when I went back and listened to our interview back then, I actually was very heartened to realize I've been talking about some of the same things for quite a long time, very consistently, and I'm still excited about them.
Yeah, me too. I love Breaking Money Silence and talking about empowering people around their relationship with money. And so, for the listener who's listening in, we're going to talk a little bit about Ellen and how her work has evolved since 2016. And we're also going to reflect back about, it was originally called the Breaking Money Silence podcast. I rebranded maybe 2 years ago to Unleash Your True Value podcast. But no matter what it's called, we're going to talk about what I learned over 10 years of podcasting, not only about my relationship with money, but about podcasting and also about what a podcast can do for you. So let's start, Ellen, with talking about you. And when you were on the podcast in 2016, you had a very clever money myth that you wanted to bust wide open. I'll share that in a minute, but let me just tell listeners who are newer to the podcast that when I started in 2016, every guest would show up with a money myth that they wanted to bust wide open. And Ellen came to the podcast with this myth: money will not buy happiness. So tell us a little bit about that, Ellen.
Actually, the myth that I love busting is that money can buy happiness, because we've heard like, oh, money can't buy you love and money can't buy happiness. But there has been interesting research that money truly can buy you happiness if you use it to help other people. And the idea of using our money as a force for good in the world makes me smile. And I know it is one of the biggest reasons I do my work in the world, is that people can realize what a huge gift that money can be, especially when we use it to make the lives of other people even better.
And one of the fun things that I did is I went back and I listened to a couple of the first episodes. I think you were episode 3. And really, I would second that you've been consistent over the last 10 years in terms of the work that you've been doing and the passion you've had around it. But is there anything that has changed about either your relationship with money or this belief that you have that money truly can buy happiness?
My belief that money can buy you happiness by serving others, I think, is expanded in terms of ways that this can help our own relationship with money. So, one of the things that I hear over and over from people when I'm doing intuitive money consultations with them or just talking to people in general is people have so much worry around money. And this worry can come whether they have money or not. I know you know this, Kathleen. Some research that I've more recently found is that when we are generous with our money, when we contribute money to charities, for example, it actually helps reduce our stress. So it helps us feel better about our own relationship with money when we use it for the greater good of others. I think that's one of the dirty little secrets about generosity is that I think there's this thought, oh, you do it for selfless reasons. It's actually a beautifully selfish thing to do when we help other people. Not only does it make things better for others in the world, but it also makes us feel better ourselves.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, often when you talk about the stress around money, I think both of you and I, experience that a lot in the work that we do and our clients, whatever's stressing them out, whether that's, pricing their services, whether that's they have wealth, they don't have wealth, they have a lot of debt, whatever the case may be. But it is interesting that when you can live in a place of abundance where you feel as if, and even if it's a small amount, that you can gift something that it does really make you happy. I mean, recently I joined the Vermont Women's Council where I'm giving of time, but they also had an annual fundraiser. And while my gift wasn't huge, it was bigger than I've made in the past. And I have to tell you, that's the money I didn't worry about. I
Mhm.
worried more about, other types of expenses in my life. Should I have bought those shoes versus writing that check to a good cause? So I'm a sample size of one, but it seems like that is true.
Research shows this over and over, Kathleen, that it makes us feel really, really good. There was research that was done with using MRI machines, and they found that the same part of your brain lights up from making a charitable contribution as it does from winning a prize.
So maybe, and this is a lofty goal, but maybe in the world, if we were all a little bit more generous with our money and lived in that abundance, we would be less stressed out about it. Is that oversimplifying it?
No, I love that vision of the world. And it takes us from this scarcity thought of lack and there's not enough, which is worry based and stressful and feels awful. That when we are opening up and giving more to others, whether it's a qualified charity or someone important to you in your life, it makes us feel more abundant. And if the world were to live from that place, knowing that there's more than enough for everyone to go around, I think that would be a beautiful way for the world to be. And I think a lot of our problems in the world would go away as well.
Wow, I didn't know on the last podcast we were going to solve the world problems, but I think we've done it, Ellen.
Just thinking the same thing. Maybe you can't end. Maybe you cannot end this, KBK.
That's too funny. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and ask you, like, over the last 10 years, is there anything that surprised you about either your relationship with money and how it's changed, or maybe the work that you've been doing and how that's changed over the last decade?
Well, if you had told me in 2016 how dramatically my professional life would change, I don't know if I would have believed you, maybe. But since then, I've sold my financial advisory practice. And I never would have imagined that part of the work that I do is coaching financial advisors. I would also not have imagined in 2016 that I would be doing intuitive work relating to money. I realized in about 2017 that I'm highly intuitive when it comes to people's relationship with money. And it ended up being part of the work that I do now. I have clients all over the world that I do intuitive money readings with. And none of this would have been even believable to me in 2016, Kathleen.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and I've been on I've watched you evolve over time, and I actually had forgotten that you were still in your practice in 2016 as a financial advisor, and
Yeah.
so it's been really nice to connect with you in different ways. We do similar yet different work, and so it's really been fun. Now, for somebody who's interested in knowing a little bit more about what you do and, wants to connect with you, where would they reach out? What would be the best place?
I would say two good places. One would be just at my website. There's lots of free resources there and information, and that's ellenrogin.com, and that's Rogin. And I love hanging out on LinkedIn. So I'd be thrilled to connect with anyone that would like to connect with me there. Thank you.
Oh, of course. And I'm, thrilled for anybody listening in today to do that if they don't know who you are already, to check out your books and your work. It is nice to have somebody else in the money psychology space with me. And so we're going to switch gears. And I have to tell you, to be honest, I'm like a little nervous because I'm so used to interviewing other people. But Ellen's going to ask me a few questions as a way to kind of reflect back on what the last 10 years of podcasting has been. So I'm going to turn the mic over to her, and she's very experienced at this, so I'm in good hands.
I am thrilled to be able to turn the table on you a little bit here, Kathleen. And you have had a very long, consistent podcast. And I've seen lots of people starting podcasts and ending them, maybe get a few episodes in. But 10 years is a long time. And you were doing this ahead of the curve. So, what have you learned over the last 10 years as a podcast host?
One of the things that's surprising is it isn't until I announced I was ending that I realized that I was ahead of the curve. So that would be, I mean, that's one of the things that's kind of cool in looking back. I also am somebody that when I put my mind to something, I'm pretty consistent. So 10 years kind of went fast in some regards, but I've learned so much in podcasting. I've met so many great people. I have learned so much about different people's relationship with money. One of the things, or one of the reasons I started this podcast was as a research project for my book, Breaking Money Silence. And I thought to myself, well, I know what I think about money and I know what my clients think about money, but I don't have any idea what other people really think about money, and let me just see. And so it started that casually. And so over the course of time, what's been really interesting and what I've learned is that if you open up a safe space like this podcast and you invite people to break money silence and talk about their relationship with money, they will. And it's not just financial advisors. We've had musicians on. I've had Sean Lawson, who makes a wonderful craft beer. I'm actually going there to celebrate after this podcast is over. I've had, what I would say regular folks coming on, couples to talk about money. And so, what I have learned is that if you are willing and open and you create a safe space, people will engage in these conversations and we will learn and grow together. And so, I didn't know if that would be the case. And so that is one of the big things that I've learned over 10 years. And I'll continue to do that work. I'll just do it in a different format.
So this is a little bit less on podcasting and a little bit more on your area of deep expertise. But in having all these conversations with people about their relationship with money, well, I guess a couple questions. One, what was one of the things you didn't expect about how people relate to money, maybe because it wasn't part of your upbringing or something you hadn't seen before? So, what was like an unexpected part of relationship with money? And maybe what is one of the common themes that you see over and over?
That is a great question. I would say the thing that surprised me was there were some people that came on the podcast that had either written books or worked in the space, financial services. And when it came to money being a taboo in their life, that was not the case. Like, part of what drove me to this work was my parents were really good at teaching financial literacy to a certain point, but we didn't talk about feelings and money. And so to hear other people's history and to learn that there are families that do talk about feelings and money, it was very interesting and enlightening. I was like, great. I don't want this to be a problem for everyone. So I would say that was one thing. I think the common theme is what came to mind, I'll just share what came to mind right away, is unfortunately, so many of us at least have a little taste of money shame. Like, if we like it, we feel like we like it too much. If we are managing it, we feel like we're not managing it right. That we feel like there's something wrong with us when it comes to money on a deeper level, when in fact, there's something wrong with our society in how we are talking about money and teaching people about money. And that shame, I really wish that shame, and I do think it's getting reduced, it's going down, but I really wish that shame would go away, because we're not bad people if we make a mistake with money. We're just people who happen to make a mistake. And it's learning from it that's important.
I think because it's such a as your work's been around breaking money silence, I think there's the shame part of it has been something people haven't talked about. So I'm glad to hear that you think it's getting slightly better. I believe there's probably a lot more work that we can all do to make it okay for people to talk about. But so looking back on these 10 years, is there anything that you might have done differently?
One of the things, and this is the business side of podcasting, I would have definitely reached out and asked for sponsorship sooner.
Mm.
There were periods of time that I had sponsors, and then 2 years ago, I made a conscious choice not to have sponsors because I wanted to do more self-promotion. But when I look back, I really could have put a sponsorship package together and got a sponsor or people to advertise much earlier in the game. And it was really this fear or this self-doubt of like, well, who am I to ask for a sponsor? So if you're out there and you're podcasting, don't hesitate to ask for sponsors. The worst thing that can happen is they say no. But what I found was I had a lot of great sponsors who wanted to have brand awareness, that wanted to support the Breaking Money Silence message. And it really allowed me to continue podcasting and to do so and go beyond just the marketing. So that is something that I certainly would have done differently. I think the other piece is I really feel like because there was no pressure on the podcast, it was just a research project. That's not something I would do differently. Like, I liked the idea that it just organically started and I just kept going, and I still am curious about people's relationship with money. And to look back and go, wow, it's 10 years. I started to feel as if, okay, I might be done. And then when I realized it's been 10 years, it's like, well, of course you're done. That's a lot of episodes. I just want to go back very quickly, though. I do think, Ellen, there's a lot more work to be done around our relationship with money. I think that when it comes to the shame and younger generations, I just think there is a shift, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So those are the things. And I think the other thing I learned podcasting, or what really surprised me, was people would just say yes. Like, I can remember reaching out to Josie Cox, who wrote Women, The Rise and Fall of Money, Economic Equality, and Power. And I was like, she's never going to say yes. And she did. And she was very gracious. I had other people who I thought, well, this is a bit of a reach. And I reached out and they said yes. So, I think it's podcasting in itself is a great way to get to know people. And it also is a great way to connect with people that maybe aren't in your immediate center of influence.
I really appreciate your generous purpose for starting the podcast, which was a research project. So that helped inform you in the work that you do, which then informed all the people who've read your book and listened to the podcast. And I really appreciate that because I suspect, and not that I have anything against self promotion, I think it's important that we let the world know about us. I suspect there's more and more people now starting podcasts that it's really all about their platform versus how they're serving people. And I
Mhm.
think part of the reason this had the longevity that it did and why you got so many yeses, Kathleen, is because you were doing this for generous reasons for people. So thank you for
Well,
that.
it You're welcome. And one of the things that I did as I was, my own process of saying goodbye was I wrote a blog about the top 10 things I learned podcasting. And one of them is so important. And I didn't struggle with this. Maybe one or two guests brought this out in me, and I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying I noticed this. But you never want to compete with your guests. You're bringing them on to let them shine. And I feel like a good podcast host, just like a good journalist, lets the person shine. It isn't about one upping the person. And so I really think that I hadn't thought about it in terms of generosity of spirit, but I would say that's how I approached each and every episode.
It's such a great distinction because I'm thinking about one of the podcasts I love listening to, and the host is always doing that for her guests and making them sound even more fascinating than they already are. And I think the benefit is not only makes your guests shine, but it also honors your audience that you're bringing someone on that you think will serve them as well. So that was a very smart way of doing things, I think, Kathleen. Not that it's a surprise because you're brilliant, but that would be part of your goal as a really good podcast host.
I would like to be called brilliant more. Can we just have a podcast where you occasionally call me
Sure.
brilliant?
Yes. So, brilliant, KBK. What advice would you like to leave the listeners with?
I think that two things. One, of course, is going to be the message that if you're listening in, no matter what your role is in life, to dare to break money silence, to have that conversation and to start small. I think this second message is maybe more for business people, but also for people who aren't in business, which is dare to step outside your comfort zone. If I had paused and really thought, who am I to be a podcast host? Or, I didn't know anything about it. I'm somebody who just leaned into it and did it. And so I think about all the good that came from leaning in and saying, yes, this is outside my comfort zone, but I'm going to learn to do it and I'm going to get better at it. So dare to break money silence and dare to step outside your comfort zone.
It's very inspirational. So now that the podcast is ending, I know there's many things that you work on, but what's up next for you?
It's loose. I'm purposely leaving a little time to marinate and think about what's next. I do know something creative is next. I just don't know exactly what that is. But I will continue to speak live and virtually about this topic and other topics that I'm passionate about the great wealth transfer in women and how advisors can do a better job taking care of them, and certainly how women can do a better job taking care of themselves. I love the group and private coaching that I do, which is really about how do you find community where you can support each other and grow your businesses and cheer each other on. And I think a new thing that's coming out in 2026, which is this is the first time I'm announcing it, is that Breaking Money Silence will have study groups both for professionals as well as consumers. And so I'm really excited to bring the Breaking Money Silence message kind of in a different format. My guess is, Ellen, I'll probably have more time to write a little bit, but I'm not promising anything around that. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to. And to be honest with you, the couple of hours I'll save a month, I'd like to get out in nature. As anybody who's listened to this podcast knows, that's either skiing or biking for me.
I love that. I was thinking you were going to lead with the skiing or biking. And I this these breaking money silence study groups, what a brilliant idea. And I know, certainly in the financial services arena, this is work that advisors and other professionals I know from my own personal experience and my experience of being in the industry a long time as well, will so benefit from, and ultimately their clients will benefit in big ways from this. So I'm giving you a standing ovation for all these things you're working on, Kathleen.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I really am so honored that you would come and interview me a little bit and ask good questions, which you always do. I think as I end, again, mixed feelings. I'm both really excited to see what else unfolds now that I have a little bit more space in my schedule, and also a little sad because anytime it's an end of an experience, I tend to be a person who feels her feelings, and so I'm just going to honor that. But what I want to say in my final goodbye to everybody is from the bottom of my heart, thank all the guests that took time out of their schedule to do this. They didn't have to say yes. The sponsors that supported the podcast during that period of time that I had sponsorship. The KBK team, a shout out to my editor who's phenomenal. Kurt, if anybody needs a good editor, is great. And certainly my virtual assistants, both Celia and Julie, have been wonderful and instrumental in making this podcast a huge success. And last but not least, to everybody who listened, whether it was one episode or for many years, I will miss having this format to chat with you, but I hope you will reach out on LinkedIn or connect with me through my website so we can keep the conversation going. Ellen, it has been absolutely phenomenal to get to know you over the last 10 years. And I just want to say thank you very much for breaking money silence with me today.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Unleash Your True Value. I hope you're feeling inspired, empowered, and ready to own your worth unapologetically. Remember, your value isn't up for negotiation. It's time to embrace it, amplify it, and let the world know exactly what you bring to the table. If you're ready to take things even further, you don't have to do it alone. As a money mindset and business coach, Kathleen specializes in helping professional women like you rewrite their money stories, step fully into their power, and take their businesses to the next level. Visit kbkwealthconnection.com to set up a free coaching discovery call. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and leave us a 5-star review. Until next time, ditch that discount mindset and unleash your true value like the rock star you are.